Good day. Remember earlier this year when I introduced you to the DIAMONDBACK Rattler frame kit? If you missed that video, make sure to check it out after this one because it explains how and why I came up with the original Rattler design along with all of its features. Well, it turns out the Rattler's been a big hit and has sold out in a short period of time thanks to all of our new Rattler pilots out there. No worries though, because the second Rattler batch is now in stock and up on the website on the Pilot's Den page. It's limited stock though, so make sure to grab yours while you can. I've made a few upgrades to the original design to make it even more versatile, giving you more flexibility in how you build it out, while making it more agile and perfect for longer range flights with more flight time. Today I'll briefly go over what those new features are, how to quickly assemble the frame, and show you how I've built my second Rattler with striking capabilities. Sound like fun? Then make sure to hit that thumbs up button below and subscribe to your TMac FPV channel, your home for your journey to better FPV fun, flights, and racing stuff. Okay, here we have the top and bottom plates for both the original Rattler over here on the left and the second batch Rattler over here on the right. They look pretty much the same, so what are the differences? Well, for one, the back diamond on the top plate was made bigger and moved back to replace the small circular opening. This allows for a right angle MMCX connector on your VTX antenna to slip right through it for easy installation. Secondly, while the original frame came in at a weight of 36 grams without the custom 3D printed camera mount, and the base plate weighed in at 26 grams, the new base plate weighs in at 20 grams, saving 6 grams in overall weight. That's because I knocked off only about a ½ millimeter in thickness from the original base plate, while still maintaining its rugged durability. In the original Rattler video, I spoke of these flarings where the arms are attached to the main body of the base plate and how they add durability to the frame. Another aspect of the frame's durability is how it's cut with the carbon fiber weaves in line with the angle of the arms. This also strengthens the frame and adds to its survivability. The original Rattler frame without the custom 3D printed camera mounts weighs in at 37 grams. Now remember, the second batch Rattler base plate is 6 grams lighter. So this time the total weight of the Rattler frame with the custom 3D printed camera mount, both included in the overall weight and included with the kit itself, still comes in lighter than the Rattler with a 3 millimeter thick base plate. This should make for longer flight times. Of course, you can still get the extra beefy Rattler with a 3 millimeter base plate. I've made those available for a limited time as well if you constantly push the limits of your abilities and have a tendency for, say, unintentional landings. So you can get your choice, extra beefy or Rattler light. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the beefy 3 millimeter base plate Rattler comes with 12x12 motor mounts for your larger size micromotors. This new Rattler version comes with motor mount slots. That allows you to mount either 12x12 motors or 9x9 motors, such as your Airblade Superman series, which are really efficient motors. I've got a couple other special things I want to show you that I've been working on as well, but I'll wait just a few more minutes to break those out for you. First, let's see how we put the Rattler together. It consists of the base plate, which we were just talking about, the top plate with a new larger diamond cutout in the back that allows you to fit a right angle MMCX connector from your VTX antenna, and it also keeps your VTX antenna in place so it stays far away from your props. It comes with 6 25 millimeter knurled standoffs with about a 4 millimeter outer diameter, which is important because the 3D printed custom camera mount is specifically designed to be pressure fit with those 4 millimeter outer diameter standoffs. Once you get the standoffs inserted into the custom camera mount, they're not going to slide around. So your camera is going to be secure, which will give you some very stable flight videos. I'll show you how to get the camera mounts on the standoffs here in just a bit. To secure the plates to the standoffs, the kit comes with M2 by 6mm screws, and I've also thrown in a couple more to mount your camera on the custom camera mount. The final item in the kit is the custom camera mount. And let's go ahead and put it on 2 of the 25mm standoffs for the front of the Rattler. By the way, if at any time you wanted to make a lowrider Rattler with a shorter stack height, just replace these 25mm standoffs with some 20mm standoffs and you're good to go. Nothing else changes. The custom camera mount is 15mm wide, so it'll still fit nicely on the 20mm standoffs. Okay, to get the camera mounts on the standoffs, you just need to start them by twisting them onto the end. Take your time and be patient. They do go on. And I found what works best for me is to get a pair of pliers and just hold the end of the standoff and twist the camera mount on that way. And make sure that you twist them on the desired height that you want to mount your camera from the bottom of the base plate. You want the ends of both the standoffs on one side of the camera mount to be sticking out of the camera mount the same distance, and you want to do the same thing with the other camera mount. There, one side's done. Let's do the other one. And as I've mentioned, once these standoffs are in the custom camera mount, your camera is going to be very secure, which will give you some really good stable video. There you go. Both are done. Now, normally at this point, what I'd do to build out the Rattler is I'd start to assemble the components. For now, though, I just want to show you how easy it is to put the frame together and take it apart to work on. All done. That's how simple it is. Now, once it's built, if you need to work on the components, you have easy access to them by removing these 6 screws. There you go. All right, let's take a look at the components we're going to use to build this thing out. All right, all of my components are here. I've designed the Rattler as a dual stack frame, so you can put either your digital CADX Vista or split type HD and FPV camera up front with your flight control stack in the rear. I'll be using my favorite, the CADX Tarsier V2, up front in the first stack. The video from it will be transmitted with an EWRF E708TM3 Pro VTX that has an MMCX connector and different output power levels going up to 800 milliwatts. For my VTX antenna, I found these iFlight Sigma antenna to work really well. They're lightweight and inexpensive. By the way, I've got links to most, if not all, of the components I'm using in the video description below. For my receiver, I'll be using the Crossfire Nano as usual, and I haven't yet decided what type of antenna I'll be using with it. I've been using the Video Aerial Systems or the VAS X-Fire Pro, and it's worked really well for me. I'll probably go with that again. If not, of course, I'll be using the Immortal T. My motors are going to be the Flywoo NIN 1404s, 3750 kV motors with a 12x12 mounting pattern. Remember, this new version of the Rattler has motor mount slots, so you can go 12 by 12 or 9 by 9. If you really want to get longer flight times, maybe without as much punch, try a lower kV motor like the Airblade Superman 1404 2500 kV motors, which I'll link below, or the Flywoo 1404 2750 kV motors, if you can find them. One thing I forgot to mention earlier when I spoke about the dual stacks is that both stacks are 20 by 20 mounts. So with that in mind, for my flight stack in the rear stack position, I'll be using this Beta FPV toothpick 20 amp all-in-one board with a 26.5 by 26.5 mounting pattern. What? I thought this was a 20 by 20 mount. It is. But I've designed a 20 by 20 to all-in-one board mount adapter, which is available on the website to go along with the Rattler frame if you really want to try to keep the weight down on your Rattler by using a single all-in-one board, which of course is what I'm going to do. All right, it's build time. All right, what I like to do before I start any of my builds and put any of the components in place on the frame is I like to look at the wiring diagram for the flight controller that I'll be using and figure out which pads I'm going to put my various components on, and then go ahead and tin those pads with solder to get them ready to wire up the components to them. For instance, we know that the motors are going to go in these four corners over here, so I'm going to tin these pads for the motors. After I've tinned all the pads that I need to for all of the components that I'll be using, I'll go ahead and install my flight controller using my 20 by 20 to all-in-one board adapter mount, like that, just to get it in place. With it in place, I can then mount the motors on each of the motor pads and measure out the wires from each of the motors down the arms to its respective motor pads so that I can trim the wires to the appropriate length for each motor on its own pad. It just makes for a neater build without any loose extra wire length flopping around on the arms. So the first thing I'm going to do is tin the pads that I need to using the schematic wiring diagram for the flight controller I'll be using. I'll mount the flight controller, then I'll mount the motors, and then I'll measure and cut the motor wires to length for each of the pads that they'll be connected to, and we'll go from there. All right, I have tinned all the pads on the flight controller that I'm going to be using. I've mounted the flight controller onto the base plate. I've mounted the motors on the motor pads, and I've measured and I've cut the motor wires to the appropriate lengths so that they neatly go to their motor pads. Now what I'm going to do is tin the ends of each of the motor wires and solder them to their respective pads. All right, so now I've got each of the motor's wires soldered to their respective pads. And to help me guide the wires along the arms, I've used some of this 8mm wide fabric tape. This particular brand is Emax fabric tape. However, you can get various brands of it. And once again, I'll put links to the fabric tape down in the video description below. When I've completed all of the components connections to the flight stack, one of the last things I'll do is wrap the motor wires closer to where the arms connect to the main base plate to keep the wires nice and tight on the frame arms themselves so that they don't catch anything while in flight. I don't want to do that right now, just in case I've got some issues with some of the components that would make me take the flight stack apart and remove the motors. So we'll do that later. Right now, what I want to do before I do anything else with regards to connecting any further components is I want to check out to make sure both the motors and the ESC on this all-in-one board are actually working properly. And to do that, I'm going to use my old style smoke stopper, connect the battery to it, and if it's working properly, you should hear some ESC tones, and this light bulb should not light up. If I do not hear ESC tones, or if this light bulb lights up, that means I've got some sort of issue going on with the ESC. So let's go ahead and plug this in. Watch the light bulb. That's a good thing. That tells me that the ESC is working properly, and the motors should be working fine as well. To double check that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my fingers on the motors as I plug the battery in. And normally, you can feel the motors twitch just a little bit with your fingertips when you plug in the battery. That one I did, and so that's working fine. Let's try this one. That one I can. That one I can. And that one I can. All look good. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the rest of my components to the flight stack and their appropriate solder pads. Now, if you want to see how I connect all of the components to this particular Betaflight all-in-one board, I'll include a link to the complete wiring diagram in this video's description below. All right, let's get to it. Okay, as I'm connecting my components to my flight stack, I'm planning out where to put my Crossfire Nano receiver, as well as which of the two antenna I'll be using. I mentioned earlier I wasn't sure which one I was going to use. I've been using the VAS, Video Aerial Systems Xfire Pro antenna, and it's worked great for me. I wanted to let you know why I'm going to go ahead and choose this antenna, one of the main reasons. Besides the fact that it works awesome, it's designed for cross-polarization, so it reduces or eliminates nulls. Watch this. Here's the Immortal T. 3 grams. Here's the Xfire Pro. 1 gram. The Immortal T weighs 3 times as much as the Xfire Pro. I'm going with the Xfire Pro. All right, I've got all the components connected properly. I've got the CADX Tarsier V2 up in the front stack. I've got my Beta FPV all-in-one 20 amp flight controller and ESC mounted on my 20x20 to all-in-one board mount adapter. On top of that, I've got my EWRX 708 TM3 Pro VTX video transmitter, along with the iFlight Sigma VTX antenna. On top of that, I've got my Crossfire Nano receiver, along with the VAS Xfire Pro antenna, which I've mounted at the bottom. Here I've decided to go with a Lucky Box buzzer, which is my normal buzzer that I go with. It's got an internal battery, so it's self-powered. Should you lose main power on your quad and the quad drops out of the sky somewhere, difficult to find, the buzzer goes off and continues to beep based on how you program it for a very long time. I think it's something like 12, 24 hours maybe. So now all I have to do is bind the Crossfire Nano receiver to the Crossfire module of my transmitter, which is almost automatic. And I've got a video on Crossfire, which demonstrates how to go ahead and do that, so you can check that out. And before I go ahead and put the props on, I'm going to go ahead and set her up in Betaflight, which I always want to do with the props off for safety reasons. Once I get done with that, I'll mount the camera to the custom 3D camera mount, put the top plate on, put the props on, and we'll come back and see what she looks like. Well, here she is, our latest addition to our Rattler family. What do you think? Since I normally fly with a bottom mount battery, one of the questions I recently got was, can you fly it with the top mount battery? The answer is, of course you can. Just might want to put some Umagod pad here, or what I use is Velcro. I put the Velcro on my battery and also on the plate that I'm going to use to put the battery on. But for now, I'll just show you that it fits fine on top like that. And you've got plenty of room here for an Insta360 Go mount or even a naked GoPro mount. And of course, one of the things you're going to want to know is, how much does she weigh? Let's figure that out. Dry weight, 137 grams. I believe the Flywoo Explorer LR comes in at 163 grams dry weight. I know that's a 4-inch, but this is a hybrid frame where you can run it's now 136 grams. It keeps getting less the longer I talk. This is a hybrid frame, which means that you can run 3-inch props up front and 4-inch props in the rear like I have here. With a 4S 650 LiPo, comes in at 197 grams, less than 200 grams, which means with an Insta360 Go, which is about 20 grams, you're still going to be well under the 250 gram limit for registration. Let's say you want to fly this like the Flywoo Explorer LR with a higher capacity battery than a 650. Let's say you want to fly it with a 4S1100 battery to get some really long flight times. What's the weight going to be then? 226, well under 250 grams. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Good stuff. So those are the new features of the Rattler frame. Both the 3mm and 2.5mm thick baseplate versions are available through my site at TMacFPV.com to meet your flight style. Head on over and check them out. But before you go, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell below to get notified of future posts. I've got a little surprise for you in the next one. Till then, thanks for your time. Clear skies, friend.